Good morning. At least for me it is right now. I don't know when you'll be watching this. Um, just gotten finished with meditation, and I know that, as I have dubbed it, the year of death, which is also, as I pointed out in the year of death video, that's transition, right? That's about transition. It's about something old dying off and something new coming in. But I also realize that it's important to have sort of concrete things that you can do to help deepen the transition, to help you make sense of the transition, because it's not an easy thing, right? As we talked about, dying isn't an easy thing, and giving birth isn't an easy thing. So, one of the things that can be incredibly powerful during a transition phase is shadow work. What does shadow work mean to you? A lot of people have thrown out a lot of different definitions about shadow work. The way that I define shadow work is working, well, not working on, it is looking at the parts of yourself that you don't like or that you feel like should change and figuring out what that's about, right? What attachments are around those feelings, right? And I'll give you a very concrete example in a minute. But I want you to think about a couple of things, because I think a lot of times people think shadow work is about excising something about themselves, about changing something about themselves. And that, in my experience and in my understanding, is not the case. It's actually about finding a way to love those things about ourselves that we don't love, right? The things that we consider our weaknesses, the things that we consider our blocks, the things that we consider are the things that are keeping us from doing what we want to do or from being truly happy, right? Okay, so here's mine. Most of my shadow work has been about my body. I, from a young age, I was bigger. I grew fast. I was taller and bigger than most. I was the third largest in my class, tallest, but also heaviest. I've never been a petite person ever. And I bought into the whole cultural idea that to be skinny and petite is the way to go. That's beautiful, and that therefore I was not beautiful and could not be beautiful. And I was teased as a child about being overweight, even though I wasn't that overweight. I was big and I was strong, and that wasn't feminine. So I was made fun of. I was also probably a bit of a weird kid, so I was made fun of, but I was definitely targeted. The fun that people were making of me took the form often of going after my body. And not that I am blaming them at all, but my father in particular, whom I adore and adored, was also sort of instrumental in that. He would make comments about my weight and about maybe that I should lose weight. My grandmother very specifically made comments about my thighs, and my thighs have really been the thing, right? And if you have ever seen my book, The Reluctant Alchemist, you'll see that in the very beginning it says, my path to enlightenment started because I hated my thighs, right? Now, to say we don't ever get to the end of the path unless we're like Buddha or Jesus or something. So I'm not talking about that I am like, woo, that's not what I'm saying. But the path started because I hated my thighs and because I got taken out in a skiing accident. But that's a whole nother story that I'll tell another time. We're going to stick to the thighs right now. So most of my shadow work has been about accepting and loving my body. And I will be very honest, I am not entirely there yet. But I also understand, and the body is a good example in a way, because I can't excise them. Well, I guess I could. I could go get surgery, right? I could try to force my thighs into this sort of ideal that's in my head that may be partially put there by the culture, partially put there by media, partially put there by people in my life like my father and my grandmother and the kids in preschool or in grammar school. But that doesn't mean I have to accept it. What I would like to do is I would like to get to a point, and I think I'm at a point where I no longer hate them. I would not say that I love them, my thighs. but I don't hate them. So that's progress. And it's something I'm continuing to work on. But these shadows can be other things, and it's not to say that that's the only shadow that I have. It's just a really good, easy, concrete example. So what do I do? How do I find myself, or how do I help myself love my thighs? Well, the first thing is you have to identify what are your shadows. What are the things that you either dislike or hate about yourself, and these can be anything from like your body parts to inclinations that you have, to things that you do, to ways that you are in the world, to thoughts that you have, right? And whether those thoughts are about yourself or whatever they are. So what is it that you really dislike about yourself? That's the place to start, right? That's the place to start. And to get curious about it, like why do I have this feeling about this thing about me? So we identify it by figuring out what it is we don't like about ourselves. We get curious about why that is. And then we start trying not to change the thing, but to change how we feel about it, right? Because anything that we pour a lot of negative energy into is only going to pour negative energy, back into us, right? That's essentially what we're doing. We're like we're drinking poison on ourselves. Why would we do that? Don't do that. I'm telling myself that too. So how can we love on ourselves, right? How can we love those parts that are our shadows? Because that's where freedom lies, right? Is to figure out how not to be. So for me, with the thighs, for example, part of it is getting curious about how I got to this point where I feel this way about myself or whatever it is about myself. And then what is it that I can do to release whatever attachment? So for my thighs, the way that I'm looking at it, I have an attachment to how they should look. They should be different. They should be smaller. They should be thinner. They should be more muscular, right? That's in my head. Why? Why do I have an attachment to that? So then I get curious about what the attachment is that I have, and then I can start to unpick that attachment, and I can start to simply focus on all the great things that my body has done for me, including my thighs. Because my thighs, which I have a lot of animosity for, are incredibly strong and have always been incredibly strong. I have been able at times in my life when I've really been working out, which is a lot, I've been able to leg press 400 pounds. That's a lot. That's a lot of, it's like 3 me's, 2.5 me's. Anyway, so my thighs are incredibly strong. So maybe I could focus on the positive parts of that, right? There's always something. Every shadow has a light side and every light has a shadow side. There's 2 sides to absolutely everything. A lot of shadow work is about finding the light in that thing that you consider to be a shadow. So just focusing on what is it that I can find that's light about it, like the strength of my thighs. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it for right now. Just to recap, the idea of shadow work is not to get rid of something. It's to figure out how to appreciate it, love it, find the light in it, not give in to the dark part of it. So, okay, for instance, if you're having thoughts that you don't like, let's say you have fantasies that you don't like, here's the deal. Are those thoughts or are they things that you're acting on? And what is it about those thoughts? Get curious about why is that, What is it that I'm feeling about that? Why do I have a negative feeling about that? Is it really a negative thing? Or am I making it negative? So, identify the things that you don't like about yourself. Pick one to start with. Realize that it's not about getting rid of this thing. It's about loving this thing into something else or accepting it. And in doing that, you are learning to love and accept all of you as the divine creature that you are. We are all divine creatures. And we all have darkness and light. And the problem isn't that we have darkness, it's that often the darkness and the light are out of balance. And part of the reason they're out of balance is because of the way that you're attached to something about the shadow, and about the shadow being negative. The shadow is not negative. It is absolutely necessary. As my first mentor told me, you cannot have a movie without light and dark. You cannot have it. You can't have it. If it was all light, you wouldn't be able to see anything. If it was all dark, you wouldn't be able to see anything. So remember that the shadow isn't bad. It's where your work is. It's where your work is. So identify it. Get curious about it. It's not something to get rid of. It's something to bring in balance. That's where I'm going to leave you. Love you. Mwah!